Alright, Intro to Algebra students, we're taking a look at Chapter 3, Lesson 6. This is a deeper dive into writing linear equations. And we have a new form, point-slope form of a linear equation. And you have your definition there, which is also in your textbook. The idea here is that the y value in the beginning is just the y value that would normally be in your equation, y equals. But we're subtracting a y value. That's from the ordered pair, so that will be a number that we plug in. M is your slope. And then we have times x minus x1, which is, again, a number from the ordered pair that you will plug in. So those are ordered pair values that will plug into the equation. We can write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b when you know the slope and the y-intercept. But sometimes we don't know that. So we can write an equation of a line in point-slope form when we're given a slope and one point, or one coordinate of a point on a line. And it doesn't have to be the y-intercept. So we have number 1 here, and we have write an equation in point-slope form for the line that passes through negative 2, 3, with a slope of 4. So we have a point, and we have the slope, so using point-slope form makes sense. So I'm going to write my kind of formula or template for point-slope form. And then I'm going to plug in the information I have. That first y is just part of the formula. Now the second y, that y sub 1, that comes from the ordered pair. And the y value in my point that they're giving me is 3. So I'm going to substitute that in for y1. Equals, we should know that m stands for our slope. We are told that the slope is 4. So I'm going to plug in 4 for m. Then my parentheses, x is part of the equation. Minus an x sub 1 tells you, that little sub 1 tells you it's the part of the ordered pair. And in that ordered pair, that is negative 2. Now I do end up with that minus negative in there, and so I'm going to rewrite that as plus positive. And that's my point-slope form of equation number 1. So in point-slope form, I ended up with y minus 3 equals 4 times the sum of x and 2. And then in number 2, we're asking to change that to slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to rewrite the equation in number 1 in point-slope form so I can work with it. And I want to aim towards getting it to y equals and then something times x plus b. So that means I'm going to start by distributing my 4. And then I want to take that negative 3 and move it over. So to do that, that means I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Now 3 is a constant, so I'm going to add it to my constant of 8. And so I get y is equal to 4x plus 11. And that is the slope-intercept form of the same equation. We're going to try a couple of other practices there. We're going to write an equation in point-slope form and then change it to slope-intercept form. So they're giving us the information that goes through a point and we have a slope. So anytime you're given a point and a slope, you want to aim for that point-slope form first. So we're writing point-slope form, slope-intercept form. So again, our point-slope form, the template, looks like that, and then we're going to plug in the values. So that first y is part of the formula, and then y1 stands for the y value in the ordered pair, so I'm going to plug in that 2, equals m is our slope, so I'm going to plug in negative 1/2 there, x is part of the formula. X sub 1 is the x value from the ordered pair, so minus negative 1. And then you guys know I don't like that. I don't usually ask you to change subtraction except when it's that minus negative. We don't like that, so we're going to write that as plus. And that is the point slope form. Now we're going to change that point slope form to slope intercept form. So I'm going to take this and write it over here, give ourselves some room to work. And in order to change it to slope intercept form, I want to start by distributing that negative 1/2. That would give me negative 1/2 x. And then multiplying negative 1/2 times 1 is going to give me a negative 1/2. Now the next thing, to get that y by itself, I want to add 2 to both sides. That 2 is a constant, so I'm going to add it to the constant, meaning it doesn't have a letter. So I'm going to add it to the number that doesn't have a letter. That gives me y is equal to negative 1/2 x. And then I need to do negative 1/2 plus 2, and that's going to give me plus 1.5 or 1.5. And that is slope-intercept form. So you saw you have a list on the previous page of the different possible forms of an equation, and the form you choose to write, or the form that's most useful, is really going to depend on what information you're given. So we want to write an equation in point slope form and slope-intercept form for a line that passes through 8, 1 and negative 2, 9. Now, when I'm given 2 points, I am going to likely use point slope form because I can find the slope from 2 points, and then I already have a point to use. So I want to use the points to find the slope. And so that's going to give me, I'm going to do y minus y over x minus x. Find the slope of that, enter it on Edpuzzle. You should have gotten, so when you find that slope, you should have gotten 8 over negative 10, and that reduces to negative 4/5. Now we take that slope and plug it into point slope form. So we have y minus y sub 1. And we would plug in our negative 4/5 for the slope, x minus x sub 1. And now for the y1 and x1, we can pick either of the 2 ordered pairs. I'm just going to use the first ordered pair, 8, 1, and I'm going to plug those values in. So the y value there is 1. And our x value that goes with 1 is 8. And so now we have point slope form of that equation. Once you have point slope form, then we can use that to find slope intercept form. We want to distribute the negative 4/5. And we just add 1 to both sides. And you might get that in decimal form, and that is fine as well. But this is slope intercept form. We are doing the same process with the got it's from your textbook, but we can do them here on the notes, where we're given 2 points. So we would start with point-slope form and then find slope-intercept form. Starting with point-slope form, we've got to find the slope. So I'm going to do y minus y over x minus x. Find the slope for A and enter it on Edpuzzle. You should have taken -3 minus 0 over 6 minus 3. That's going to give you -3 over 3. And that gives you -1. Then we're going to take one of the points. I'm just going to use the first one. I take my y value of 0 and plug that in. Plug in my slope, my x as part of the formula, minus my x value from the ordered pair, and that is point-slope form. I can take that form and simplify it. On that left-hand side, it's easier than usual because y minus 0 is just going to be y. And I just need to distribute my -1. Missed my x there. And that gives me slope-intercept form. Find the slope for B and enter it on Edpuzzle. You should have taken -10 minus 2 over 5 minus -1. So that's -12 over 6, which is the slope of -2. Choose the correct point-slope form using the first ordered pair. Plug in your slope, and then x minus the x value. And again, we don't like that minus negative, so when that occurs, I do ask that you change it to plus positive. That is point-slope form. Choose the correct slope-intercept form on Edpuzzle. Hopefully you did the work to get this form. You should be distributing the -2 and then adding 2 to both sides. We get y is equal to -2x. If you want the y-intercept in there, you could say +0. You're asked to, the cost for making spirit buttons is shown on the table. Write the equation in point-slope form to represent the cost of So we're looking at writing an equation in point-slope form to represent the cost y of attending X dog training sessions. Now remember that when we have a table, X is our first column and Y is our second. And we're looking at point-slope form, which means we want to find the slope. We have 2 possible points, but we do need to find the slope. Our slope is our change in Y over change in X. So I want to find that change in y, or y minus y over x minus x. So that is 290 minus 165 over 10 minus 5. And that gives us a slope of 125 over 5, which reduces to a slope of 25. So it's the same process, just using a table instead of listing as ordered pairs. Now we go with our template for point slope form. And you can choose either one of the ordered pairs. I'm just going to use the first ordered pair each time as we go through this. And so I have y minus, and my y value is 165. And I plug in my slope for m. And then my x minus, and the x value in my ordered pair is 5. And that is the equation in point slope form. Okay, now we're dealing with the spirit buttons. Cost for making spirit buttons is shown in the table. Write the equation in point slope form, again, to represent the cost of y of making x buttons. So again, we have a table. We're looking for point slope form, so we want to find the slope. Slope is change in y over change in x. So I'm going to take my y values and do y minus y over x minus x. That gives me a slope of 10 over 50, reducing to a slope of 1/5. And for point slope form, I want to remember my formula. And again, you can choose either one of the two ordered pairs to use as your x and y ordered pair values in there. I just will usually go with that first value. So I'm going to plug in y minus, and my y value is 25, is equal to my slope and 1/5. And I'm minus x, and my x value that goes with the y value of 25 is 100. And that is my point slope form of the equation.